Hi, Sherry. Welcome to the Liftoneself podcast.
Hello, Nat Nat.
Let's take a breath together.
Okay.
Take a deep breath in and slowly release. Let's take one more deep breath in and slowly release. How's your heart doing?
Today I'm feeling a lot of gratitude. It's just been a great start to my day. I'll say that. I had a great sleep, and when I have a great sleep, I get up early. I did a nice meditation. I went for a walk, got some fresh air, and that always puts me in a great place to start my day.
Sounds like a wonderful start.
Yeah.
And a great way to amplify and energize your energy to be able to show up for whatever life will give as experiences. What can you thank COVID for?
COVID, so many things. COVID got us home. And so with my husband and my daughter was in finished up sixth grade at that time. And for her, she loved it. She loved being home. I think she always felt that school was a bit overwhelming. And so for her, it was this reprieve. She was so happy. And we just really took advantage of this time together. And I'll say at the beginning, Dr. Shafali Jabari, she was leading a meditation every day. And I did that with her every day. And that really got me into the practice of meditating regularly. The other big thing was my mom. I live in Southern California. My family's all in Canada. And my mom, who was up in Northern Ontario, was diagnosed with stage 4 ovarian cancer. And, when I talk to everyone, they're like, you need to get there. If it wasn't for COVID, I don't know if I would have been able to go. My daughter would have been in school. My husband would have been at work. I would have to pick her up. There'd be a lot of obligations. But because they were both working from home, I was able to go and spend 3 months with my mom. And it was just a profoundly difficult and magical time to be with her, during her last few months here. So that I'm just forever grateful for that.
Thanks for sharing that intimate moment. It's death can be very appalling for people to talk about. It can be very apprehensive. It brings a lot of density in some, yet it's something that is embedded in life. And it's something that we need to, I believe, have more dialogue about, so that we're better prepared for it and we can engage with it and not miss out on our opportunities. Because like you just said, you were able to have some very deep, profound memories in those 3 months, and to experience what a transition looks like and how that develops and what you have to experience. And again, I know a lot of people might think negatively of the pandemic, yet there were a lot of great opportunities that have come out of this experience that we're still going through and we're still being ushered through. You are a teacher by trade. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Teaching English as a second language to adult learners.
And one of your passions is to bring awareness about trauma in the classroom. Can you give some insight of what created that curiosity and what that looks like in a classroom?
Yeah, sure. So my first teaching job was in Canada, and I taught new immigrants. So I had a class of like 25 students, really from around the world. I loved it. And at that time, there was no talk of like trauma. There was no kind of like, it wasn't part of how I viewed my students, even though so many of them had come from war-torn countries, really difficult backgrounds. My focus then was really on having a lot of fun and interaction and lightheartedness and movement in the classroom. And so I created a game called the Language of Love, where students got to talk about dating and relationships, and it was always about cooperation, coming together, using the language. Over the years, I've taught a lot of different populations. In 2015, I co-founded a nonprofit here in Southern California, and working with basically the mission of the nonprofit was to promote community building in order to support refugees. And I started an English class, started with 4 women from Afghanistan. And we had volunteers go to their home, pick them up. We had volunteers help with childcare. And these women came to the class, and they were once they got to know me, and once they trusted me, they really opened up. And they would tell me things like they would cry every day until they came to English class. And then the class grew. And more women came, all of them Afghan, actually 3 from Syria, and they all had health issues. And I'd say like pretty much all of them had gut issues, and also like, headaches, back pain, all these things. And the more I got to know them, I just have such a deep appreciation and love for them, because they would share and they would open their heart and they would share their stories. But they were also so open, and they are so open to laughing and like being in the moment. But for them to, the mornings would be like all of us, you've got to get yourself ready. For some of them, 4, 5, 6 kids out the door. And then they would come to English class, and it would be really hard for them to like walk through the door, sit down, because we only had 2-hour classes. So I'd be like, okay, we've only got 2 hours. We need to get down to business. Like, let's learn English. That's why we're here. And soon I realized, like, yeah, that's just not going to work. They really need some way to transition from what was going on in their lives, in their head, in their heart that morning, news they heard about from back home, what was going on with their kids here, like, housing issues, all these things, right? Everything from the trauma in the past and the resettling that they were going through, living in this new country. So I just knew that we needed to do more. So I brought a psychiatrist into the classroom, and we actually did, it's called the Connor Davidson Resiliency Scale of self-survey at the beginning. And she would come once a month, and was all about her sharing strategies on how to cope with stress, how to look at anger. And they shared, stories with her as well. And a lot of it was extremely emotional. But I knew that I had her there to kind of provide that safe space and to bring them back from those painful parts.
Sorry, I have to reflect. I'm a little spaced out today. I apologize.
That is okay.
What would have the women light up? What would have the women open up and start trusting within themselves?
Yeah.
Like in your interactions, you said that once they got to know you,
Yeah.
then it felt safe for them to start opening up about what was going on internally for them.
Mm-hmm.
Were there some methods that you used, or was there tools that you provided to allow that safe space where they felt comfortable to be honest and to open up?
Yeah. So the first thing, we always started in a circle. We started in a circle. And, that circle grew, like at times it was up to like 28 students, where we would share. And so they learned a lot from each other. We set class guidelines. Where we created this together, where they came up with, like ideas like, obviously, kind of what is said here is left here, because a lot of them are very connected
Mhm.
through family and friends, that we're here to support each other where we're at. Some of these women never went to school. Some of them had second grade education. Others were, college educated. So huge difference in their educational background, their socioeconomic background, their life experiences. So really getting them even to like really respect one another. A few things we did, like with learning a language, it's very difficult, a lot of repetition. So we would often just do things like, introductions in the morning. My name is, and then, I am, and whatever, a mother, a sister. And then that led to words of empowerment. So we would each talk about what our strength is. We'd go around. So, Nat, you might say, like, I am brave. And so then I would read, oh, Nat is brave. I am. And they would get that reinforcement from each other, hearing it. And they would really get excited for each other. And they would be like, yeah, you're beautiful, or you're like, so strong, or you're so intelligent, or you're so funny. So them seeing their own strengths and it being reflected back on their peers was really powerful. Um, Again, like some of these women, they were getting their driver's license, they were becoming citizens, they were getting into college, where others, the successes were maybe not as big, shall we say, but they were. So I had a jar, and once a week we had strips of paper, and the students would talk about something that they were proud of or an achievement during the week. So for the one woman, it was, I said hello to my child's teacher. And we got to celebrate that. That was huge for her, right? She was so shy. She was so self-conscious of the fact that she couldn't speak English. But she could say hi. She could acknowledge, she could have a connection with her child's teacher. So it was in the classroom, building the community. And for them then to use what they're using, like learning in the classroom in their lives. So, going to the doctor, um, and like for like a lot of them it was like, getting their driver's license was big, and they were the best teachers in that. Like the one woman would always be like, when I came here, I didn't know any English, I never thought I'd drive, and look, I'm doing it, you can do it, I watch cartoons, I did this, I did that. And she would really get them pumped up and excited that, okay, it's possible.
Yeah. When the density of the trauma, because like you said, they were coming from war-torn countries, Afghanistan, which is going through things presently as we speak, and then Syria, there's so many people that have been displaced from that. What would happen when those stories were shared in the classroom, or were they shared in the classroom?
They were shared, and not only when the therapist was there, but also with me. um, and at times I would give them that space. There would be a lot of tears, and when one woman would share a loss of family back home, whether it was due to war or just they got sick but they couldn't be there with them, all the women would cry with her. Very compassionate, very empathetic, um, and I couldn't not allow that to happen. And I knew and that's the thing is, whether you're a teacher or you wherever you work, you need to know yourself and how much you can take on, and then you need to know the people you're working with or that you are just with, right? So look, there's one woman who I know, if emotions open up, she's gone down a really dark path. Um, in the past, she's on medication. It does seem like that supports her. When she would have changes in her medication, it would not be good. So I'm like, okay, with her, I'm not going to let that. Basically, we're going to bring her back in. Kind of honestly, like this is not the place for that, because it's not going to get her through that to a new place where then she can kind of show up. And in our case, hopefully learn, like, have the space and capacity to be able to sit there and learn the language. So with her, I would just be like, like, okay, let's, like kind of focus on the moment, coming to the moment. How grateful are we that we're here together and we're learning English and with our friends. So with her, I just knew that we wouldn't go there. But with the other women, we did go there, and there were some really emotional classes, especially just in September. We got together with no intention for an English class, but after what happened in Afghanistan, and the US pulled out, families were, basically the Taliban took over, families were trying to get out. It was an incredibly emotional time for these women. So we just came together to say, hey, we're here for you. They cried together, they shared. We did some breath work together. We meditated. We moved our bodies. But that was it. Not that was it, but we were like, there was no other agenda. This is not an English class. We just need to come together. So also, like, I have that, let's say, privilege and flexibility to do things like that. Not all teachers can do that. But all teachers get to really learn, get to know their students in a way that when they need additional support, that they're there for them, and that the class feels like a safe place.
Do you think by providing that opening and for them to be able to release, it allowed them to understand English in a much quicker and faster way?
100%. When we talk about something that's meaningful, we are engaged. So I talked about like the language of love, that game. People loved sharing about dating and relationships and stuff like that. When we talked about like our own personal strengths, you could say, like, if you looked at a curriculum for ESL, they wouldn't be learning adjectives like that. It would be, like, my name is, da, da. But when it's you and you're owning it, I'm beautiful, I'm compassionate, definitely you take on the language because you're so invested and you're owning it. So definitely that helps tremendously with the language learning. Mm-hmm. And at times we do use, like they use their first language in the class, and we translate when we know that, when you're speaking from the heart, you need to speak in your first language.
Yeah, and that's how you learn a language. You have to speak your own language to be able to relate to the other language, so it's relatable to you. Mm-hmm. I remember this when I was taking Spanish, and this teacher, she would always say, she's like, how do you say in English? Oh, never mind. It doesn't matter. And it's like, yeah, it does. Like, you understand in Spanish, but I don't understand it in English, and I need to understand this. Yet it can be challenging when we're used to speaking it only in a certain way, and to translate that into a different language, because sometimes it doesn't match up properly. Yet what I'm hearing in your classrooms is there's a lived experience that's allowed. It's not just this curriculum and get all the questions aligned and have it look in this kind of format. It's actually, how are you able to use this language in your lived experience, and how are you able to move forth in communicating? And communication looks different in all kinds of different spectrums. Sometimes people need it to be very polished in a professional way, and other times people just need it to communicate, to get some food or some resources. And I think that, as you said, when people are engaged in their own lived experience and they can relate with it, there's a much more invested interest to want to learn and to deal with the challenges. Because learning a language, it's a lot of challenges that come up, and you get very frustrated. And it requires a type of grit and tenacity to keep engaged and keep going through those hurdles, through those grooves and bumps. What do you think would empower the classrooms in this era? Now that we have technology, now that we have better information about trauma-informed, how, learning and, as you mentioned many times, moving the body, not just being passive and sitting down and intaking information. What would you see as a great flourishing classroom for students and teachers?
Yeah, well, it's like for anyone who knows like Shafali Chapari, the conscious parent, it's about the parent. So here it's about the teacher. So it's a space where the teachers are taking care of themselves and they're getting support, and they're giving support to their colleagues, their peers, um, around self-care, around setting boundaries. And then in the classroom, that they are providing, we'll say, the tools to help students self-regulate, right? And that is anything from meditation, breath work, um, moving the body, like we talked about. Uh, different times. I remember when I taught in Toronto, I had the same students 5 hours a day. It's a long, long time in one class with one teacher. So after lunch, we would move our bodies for sure. It was a mixed class, so it was more like, we'll say, kinesthetic. It was exercise. When I'm with the women, it's dancing all out. Uh, you get to know, what works for your population. So definitely integrating these things. So like starting a class where you ground them in the present moment. You're bringing them to where they are because otherwise it's really impossible to concentrate, and to focus on learning when there's so much going on in your head and your heart and your body, because of what you've experienced, because of what you're going through now. So I really believe that this needs to be part of a curriculum, that it's not just an add-on, or it's not just when, oh gosh, something really terrible happened, we need to do something about it. No. This is what we start doing it now. The idea of creating a safe space is so important in every classroom, and really, seeing the strengths in our students, and kind of nourishing those.
What would self-care look like for a teacher?
Right. So self-care, well, that you are the expert on self-care, but for me, it's really making sure that let's say your cup is full, right? That you are setting some boundaries, that you're able to take care of yourself. So that's, physical. Are you moving? Are you getting out, getting some fresh air every day? Are you eating well? Are you doing whatever it is that brings you joy? Um, and that could be some kind of sport, that could be some kind of a creative outlet, that could be gardening, whatever it is for that person. For me, I love to play tennis, or I love to dance, I like to move, I like to spend time with friends, with my family. Really making sure you carve out that time. And also talking to other people, like especially, whenever you're going through something, whether it's like you're grieving a parent or whatever it may be, it's great to talk to someone who's going through a similar thing. And it's not just to complain, but it's to share and to learn from each other. So talk to other teachers, or talk to someone if you're in an environment where you have some support. Go to them when you need it. Don't wait till it's too late, shall we say. People are so proud, and they hold it together. Which reminds me, and I just want to share this with the Afghan women. When this Dr. Marianne was coming to the class, and she was teaching different strategies and talking to them, she also shared her own experiences, and she shared her own vulnerabilities.
Mm-hmm.
And for the women, they said it was really eye-opening for them, because they said they always have to keep it together. You've got to keep it strong. You've got to be strong. And keeping it together is being strong, and that's good. And when they see this woman who you could say is successful, she's this beautiful, educated, professional, together, whatever you want to say, woman, share like, gosh, I've had a lot, a lot of struggles myself that I had overcome. This was new to them. So sharing, your vulnerabilities, sharing, in my case, because I'm working with adults, I can share with what's going on in my heart too. So for teachers, just to, really take care of themselves and not to try to be so strong. And it's been a really challenging time the last couple of years, right? How many teachers are, experiencing burnout, right? Like not just teaching, but teaching in all these new modalities and coping with everything that, this time has brought us. So it's really doing kind of keeping a personal check on yourself, and maybe even having an accountability partner, whatever you want to call it, like a friend who's going to make sure that you're doing that. Because there's, this thing like burnout, right? Where burnouts could be from anything, right? But you're just physically depleted. And there's working with students, who have experienced trauma. There's like, they call it a compassion fatigue, right? So again, it's like, this intense, like physical, mental, and emotional, like depletion, erosion of oneself. But it can also go as far as like what they call secondary or vicarious trauma, where you almost like embody what in this case, your student, whoever that you're with, you take on their trauma. It actually alters your perception of reality.
Mm-hmm.
But there's also like the other side of it, right? So there's something called like compassion satisfaction, where you gain this new appreciation for life, and you see how others have overcome it, and along with that, there's like something called vicarious resilience, where you're like, oh my gosh, like you kind of get in. I mean, I feel that way, like, wow, like these women are so incredible, look what they've overcome, and kind of I can deal with what I'm going through. It's not to like diminish what you're going through, but it can be very empowering.
Mm-hmm.
So there's different ways of anyway, just like different ways to look at our relationship to those individuals and how we may or may not take it on.
Yeah. I think when I heard you also say in there about the strength, I think it's that we have to redefine what weakness is. Because a lot of things that we think are weak are actually a strength. And we don't feel safe or comfortable revealing those things. So we put on this armor to push through, thinking that that's a sense of strength and courage and bravery, when actually it's a kind of self-sabotage. And what you think is protecting you is actually really harming you. And what I know to be true, and what I've heard from many people, and what I have done in my own personal life, we tend to put other people on pedestals and think that their life has no imperfections. Their life has no challenges, that they make life look so easy. And I think by revealing our inner challenges or inner experiences, it helps to diminish these pedestals so that we can relate with ourselves a lot more better, and not think that other people have it more put together, more successful, because in that part, it intimidates us from doing our own inner work, because we think we can't achieve where this other person is that we've created or constructed in our mind. And I appreciate those that are in situations, which I also do with myself, is to reveal some of my personal experiences and have a transparency, so that the ego doesn't create a story in mind to make your own inner work look like it's too difficult, and that it's not attainable and it's not achievable. And I think within our storytelling, that's where we'll gather our strength. And that's where we will be resilient to thrive together, to see that, you know what, each and every single human being has challenges. We put on a good mask at times. We can look very elated, very excited, and very enthusiastic. And that is true, yet it doesn't mean that there's not challenges. It's end in both. It's not just one facet, it's not just one dimension. You can have great excitement, you can be very uh, joyful, and still be in the face of adversity and still have challenges. Yet it takes work with your perception and to always go within yourself to see where your inner turmoils are, what emotions you might be blocking. Because what I know to be true is you need to accept all your emotions to be whole with a W. And most of us want to do a la carte of what emotions we're going to engage with. And the ones that get left behind, they build up. And eventually, something leaks out. And we wonder, well, how did this happen? Or this wasn't becoming of me or whatnot. When it was just, you weren't able to listen to the emotion, listen to the information it was trying to tell you. Because some emotions are very uncomfortable to have to listen to have to feel. Yet, if we don't listen to it, we suppress or we repress, and that puts holes with an H in us. And then we go grasping outside of us to fill us when it's like, no, that's an inside job. You have to be there for yourself. And it takes accountability of people that we can co-regulate our systems, our nervous systems with, so that we can feel safe to feel our emotions, to speak about what we're feeling and what we're thinking and how we're experiencing things, to release the fear. Because we're in a society that doesn't talk about fear very well. We talk about not being in fear, don't have fear, be fearless, when it's like we have a nervous system that's built on fear. That's what keeps us alive. And we have a wonderful mind and a nervous system that keeps recording. So there's a lot of psychosomatic things that we intake that ramp up our system that we have to release and just acknowledge it. It doesn't mean to sit with it and make friends with it. It's just acknowledge it and allow it to be released so that it's not going to hijack your behavior and your biology, which can happen a lot. And as an adult, the most intimidating thing sometimes is just to say, I'm scared, and not have to do anything about it. Just acknowledge it. Because, navigating through the world, it's scary at times. And to be able to have a safe space just to say that, it relieves so much. And then you can have a better perspective on things, and you can have a different clarity on things. Yet to have that safe space, it really helps when you have other people being able to witness the pain that you're going through, help you to see the suffering that you may be creating within yourself by still holding on to certain narratives or past experiences, and also not wanting to feel your emotions. So I thank you, Sherry, for what you're bringing into the classroom and what you're bringing into the world, because it's greatly needed, especially for the women that are immigrating and breaking out of so much belief systems, ideologies, and finding themselves and reinventing themselves in a whole new world, in a whole new space. And you're providing a space where they can feel free and safe to reinvent themselves. So I thank you for that warrior work. I'm sure you don't get acknowledged enough, and I want to cheer you on and amplify the significance and the impact that you are doing in the world. All it takes is 1 in a million, and I know there's more than one that you have impacted throughout your journey of teaching. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Nat. As you had there was a lot in there that you said that was really important. And it is true that we are for the most part, I'd say most people, we're raised to not really feel our feelings. We don't know how to work through them, so we just push them back. And to be able to really to go there, you need to trust that you're with a person who is there for you. And judgment is a big part of society, sadly. And then with some cultures, it's kind of added on like layers of what is expected and saving face. And so it's really, really hard to go to these raw places, but it's so vital. So we get to train more people and bring more people in to help, right? You are one of these people, Nat, that you support so many people with their emotions and helping them through co-regulation. And this is, we talked about self-care, and sometimes that self-care is reaching out and talking to a professional, because it's hard when we do it on our own. It's really hard not to get into our head. And so to drop into your heart, it's often, it's much easier when you're with someone who can help you get there.
Yeah. I'm going to bring you into a reflective question. I'm going to ask you to take your awareness presently and go back to your 18-year-old self. And you can only tell your 18-year-old self 3 words. So as I said, it's a reflective question, so take your time. And just feel from right now to back then when you were 18, what were the 3 words that would assist you through your journey?
I could reflect more, but what came to me just automatically was to believe in yourself.
Nice.
Believe in yourself. So I think I always was that person with self-doubt. How did I end up here? Like, in a way that like, almost like I don't deserve this, right? Oh, how did I get this opportunity? And if I just would just like, well, there's a reason, right? So just like believe in yourself. And when you believe in yourself, then that's when, the magic happens.
Yeah. Yeah.
Trust in yourself. I don't know, whatever it is, but it's that. It's just.
No, I believe in yourself. Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't switch it up. That's what came into listen to intuition.
Yeah.
Believe in yourself. Yeah. Is there anything that you would like to leave the listeners?
Not just to, but really take time for yourself to connect with nature, and meaning just maybe getting outside and get some fresh air. Don't, when you see that you're being hard on yourself, to kind of take a step back and just kind of look at that critic and, be compassionate towards that critic. And as you always remind me, Nat, have some fun. Have fun, whatever that means for you. Get out and have some fun.
Yeah. Where can the listeners find you?
At this point, I have a website that's pretty dismal, but so I co-founded this organization, Globally Connected. I've kind of stepped away from that in an official capacity. I have started another initiative called Transformational Learning Communities. And the website is that, Transformational Learning Communities. Kind of by short, I go by TLC for ESL, English as a Second Language. My goal is to support as many teachers as possible so they in turn can support their students. I do have a Facebook group that educators join. Again, I focus on, we'll say my peers, it's English as a Second Language, specifically for adults, but I think it's for any educator. And it's just a Facebook group, ESL with TLC.
Thank you. And I'll make sure to put all that information in the show notes so that the listeners can find you, because you have a wealth of knowledge and experience to offer so many people around the world. I want to thank you for coming on the podcast, for sharing your time and your resources. It's greatly appreciated. And like I said, again, I want to amplify my gratitude for the work that and service that you're providing out in the world. All it takes is 1 in a million. And I know you've touched more than one person throughout your journey, and it has trickled on the impact, and it keeps on giving on. So you are the gift that keeps on giving on, Sherry. So thank you for being you.
Thank you, Nana. It's always a pleasure to talk with you.
Remember to be kind with yourself.
Will do. Thank you.
Hey, you made it all the way to the end. Thank you for your time. It's greatly appreciated. If you found any value in this conversation, please share it out with a friend. Help us grow the dialogue. Let us create the safe spaces of healing. You can find more information at www.liftoneself.com. Until next time, be kind with yourself.